CISO at Tech Mahindra and has over 28 years of experience in the fields of information security and business continuity management. He was also the head of operations at HCL Tech, and he is represented in India at in international data flow negotiations with the European Union. I request our fourth panelist, Mr. Siddesh Bhobe. He heads the digital innovations in persistent systems and has worked in various roles within the company for more than 18 years. His specialties include digital transformation, gamification, customer loyalty, social media campaigns, analytics, digital marketing, big data analytics, employee engagement. He is an active on Twitter and also a blogger, and he is also passionate about 5 Cs, cars, cuisines, camera, cinema, and cats. Quite interesting. I request our fifth panelist, Mr. Dr. M. Vidyasagar. Dr. M. Vidyasagar is currently the Cecil and Ida Green Professor of Systems Biology Science at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also a distinguished professor in systems and control at IIT Hyderabad. Prior to that, he was EVP with TCS, heading the Advanced Technology Center, and also Director of Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics at DRDO Labs in Bangalore. I now request Mr. Hemant Joshi and our past president, Mr. Praveen Mule, to felicitate the guest.
If you have removed your seat belts, fasten them again, because this is going to be a big blast. In the morning we had, I think before Dr. Dhande left, if I remember correctly, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we had 4 IITians in the room. Siddesh, you are from IIT. Vidyasagar, you're from IIT, right? Oh, Dr. Dhande is IIT. And we had another gentleman, I forget now. So I think this is a great beginning, and we must have in all our programs our premier institutions representation. And I'm absolutely delighted that the way people are coming and helping us. Introductions have been made, and actually, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan was to do the panel discussion. He was to lead the panel discussion, but I have to do it, and I'm a little diffident about doing this. But I'll make an attempt. And, as he has to leave due to a prior commitment by 11, I would request him to share his thoughts, before we get into the other discussion because we have to respect and honor his time, So Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. Sure. Yeah. You want to? Yeah. Go ahead, sit down.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can play musical chairs. Thank you very much, Hemant, and pleasure for me to be here, and thank you all for inviting me. I'm here primarily because of this young lady, Sulagna, who chases me right from CII to her current role. So she always makes sure that I come and speak. I'm really sorry I have to leave at 11. Unfortunately, the disadvantage of funding multiple startups is every startup wants you in their board meeting. So today I have a 11:15 board meeting of a very interesting startup, which I just can't not do. But I just thought I would share a few thoughts with you on not only Digital India, but something that is close to all of our hearts, which is Digital Pune, and specifically what's happening in the Pune Smart City. I've been involved with both Digital India for the last 3 years and Digital Smart City Pune very actively for the last probably year and a half. And I still remember when we first started talking about Smart City Pune, we got all the pessimism that is habitual for all of us Punekars, saying nothing can happen in this city, look at the traffic, it's so terrible, etc., etc. But we fortunately have an extraordinary municipal commissioner, Kunal Kumar. I mean, if any of you have met Kunal, you will not but be swept away by the waves of optimism that he generates. And many of us who give huge amounts of time to Pune and Pune Smart City do it because of the leadership of that man and the fact that we genuinely believe that as citizens of Pune, we can see substantial change happening. But I remember 3 months back when Pune got selected as the second smart city in the country, and we actually got the advantage of Prime Minister Modi coming to Pune on the first anniversary of the Smart City program to actually inaugurate 14 of our projects. I remember tweeting and copying Kunal and saying that, look, I mean, amazing stuff happening here. And immediately I got a tweet back saying that, look, but there is garbage in front of my house. Will the commissioner come and clean it up? But this is Pune, so we got to, I wanted to tweet back and saying, guy, go clear it up yourself, but he won't do it. We want everything to happen, and we will not lift a little finger to make it happen. So I'm not being very critical. I'm just saying that, look, at the end of the day, Dr. Dande also mentioned that, look, digital will only happen if the codes gets cleaned up, etc., etc. But the question I have for you and for your children and your grandchildren, are we just going to wait for corruption to go away from this country? Are we going to wait for the lethargy to disappear? Or can we all, as citizens of this country, do something about it? And to my mind, that is Digital India. I remember when we first started talking to Mr. Ramsevak Sharma, who was currently chairman of TRAI, and before that was the IT secretary. Ramsevak Sharma is one of the most technical people I've met on the planet. He's just amazing, the kind of technical depth. And we were actually discussing with him between NASSCOM, my company Zensar, and of course iSpirit, which is one of the think tanks, on how can we make every Indian employed through Digital India. And it wasn't just through electronics manufacturing, it wasn't just through many of the issues listed here. We actually said that, look, ultimately, information asymmetry, which is the man in the village does not have the same access to information as the IT secretary or a secretary of the government of India. How can we make completely transparent information available? And I won't get into the details of that. That's a 1-hour discussion by itself. But the kind of simple yet elegant system we designed, where literally anybody sitting in Bangli, if you have 2 hours to spare, you could walk into a rural BPO and actually start helping in downloading documents, accessing them, and creating digital documents out of it. It actually has created a revolution in this country. My own belief is that within 4 years, we will have a completely digital documentation available in this country, which hopefully is the beginning of a friction-free democracy, ensuring that people can have access to information, etc., etc. So I think Digital India, we all have the problem of last mile. We know that broadband connectivity is not fully there yet. We do have the problem of electronic governance. We do still worry about corruption and all the other things that we worry about. But I can promise you that not only at a national level, but even within Pune, we are seeing the beginnings of change happening. Just to give you a few thoughts, and I don't want to speak too long, but on what is Smart City Pune? Everywhere I talk about Smart City, people say, but what exactly is that? How am I going to benefit? And then, of course, a lot of political negativism comes in saying, oh, Smart City Pune is just this little area called ABB, Aund Baner Balewadi. That will get transformed, and all the rest of us will be dying. It's not really that bad, okay? The whole concept of Smart City Pune is 2 or 3 major pan-city initiatives: smart transportation, Okay, some of you may curse the BRTS, but at the end of the day, it's still seen as one of the most significant transportation improvements in the country. So whether it's smart transportation, smart water, smart sanitation, which we are actually learning from cities like Barcelona, there are fair amounts of projects happening to make that happen. Now you come to the local area development, which is the Aund Baner Balewadi. In terms of complete redesign of roads, cycling paths, use of solar, the Pune City Lighthouse, which is one of the best examples in the country of IT enabling skills development. I mean, if any of you have time, walk into the lighthouse at Yerwada or in Aund, and you will see the kind of joy that is coming into members of the slums communities when they come in and see the kind of skilling opportunities that exist for them. So that's one. The third, of course, which I think many of you should get involved in, is what we call the Innovation Hub of Pune. It'll take about 6-7 months to finalize, but we are really looking at a very, very comprehensive smart city initiative, which is smart startups. So any startup, in fact, one of the most significant startups I'm involved in today is a little company that enabled 4.5 lakh Pune citizens to actually collaborate in terms of idea generation for the smart city. And it was just one startup that was born in Pune. So like this, we want to identify close to 200, 300 startups who all have something to offer, which actually can make sure that some element of the smart city of Pune can make it happen. And of course, one of our goals is if it works for the smart city of Pune, it can work for the 100 other smart cities, it can work for the government of India. And my belief is there's 1 million startups out there who could actually benefit by having access to digital India. So that's the big advantage. Finally, citizen engagement. I think each one of us has an opportunity, a right and a responsibility to engage with the government, not only through MyGov, which is the Government of India's portal, through the e-Seva services that the Pune Municipal Corporation is offering. There are opportunities for us to, in fact, I keep getting surprised when people say, I actually posted a request to the Municipal Corporation and I got a call back. We're so used to expecting that nothing will happen that when something good happens, sometimes we can't believe it. But citizen engagement is one of the very key tracks that we will do in Smart City Pune. So I'm saying, and I'm going to stop in a minute, saying that, look, there is tremendous optimism amongst many of us who have rolled up our sleeves and are making digital Pune happen. It'll take its own time, but Pune, as I said, is one of the most intellectual cities. We have the amazing opportunity of integrating the IT capabilities of Pune with the manufacturing and the academic capabilities of Pune. So that's one of our initiatives in smart city and engagement, et cetera, et cetera. But finally, I completely agree, and I'm glad, ma'am, that you've organized this today. We need to constantly think about security. And I'm sure in this panel you'll get to hear a lot about that, because at the end of the day, all the great work we do over 100 initiatives or the 150 projects that we are currently rolling out in Pune can come to naught if one citizen finds that his entire database is infiltrated, et cetera, et cetera. So not just firewalls and smart security, et cetera, but even malware detection. How do we protect our children from the dark internet, as we call it? How do we ensure that as we build a digital community, a digital city, a digital India, and a digital world, we ensure that we do it smartly, securely, and make that happen. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm glad that Isaca is organizing a 2-day conference. And thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks.
So I think it's a very important piece of connecting the digital India with digital Pune and the whole innovation ecosystem, and I'm sure all of you are going to just flood Dr. Ganesh Natarajan that how all you can help, and he'll be very happy to mentor and support. And I'm going to definitely take that offer and pester you. Yeah, so I think this is very, very contextual and very nice. So we're going to, try and have focus on the digital part of the discussion and the security part. And then, look at the evolving technologies and in both digital and security, and get some perspectives on what is happening and what should happen and perhaps what should not happen. So let me start with again Dr. Natarajan, because he said he has still 10 minutes. And Ganesh, how do you see, we've been hearing right from the Prime Minister and then Dr. Dhande, and you yourself mentioned, I wanted to share, as you sat, and ran this big company, IT company, which dealt with many parts of the world, how do you see that, is this digital platform, is it proliferating, first of all? And secondly, as it proliferates, do you see opportunities for business as well as opportunities for citizens? What is your take on this? And what is the art of possible?
So I'll give you a very quick answer. I think if any of you are in the IT sector, many of my colleagues on the panel surely are. I'm sure we're all finding that if you are not in the thick of digital transformation, you're completely going to be out of business. I mean, today when the analysts worry about the IT sector and say that, look, what's happening, can companies grow at 10, 12%, etc. Companies will not grow at 10 to 12% unless most of their people are digitally capable and understand digital at a very visceral sense. And I'll explain what I mean. For a lot of companies, even today, digital means, मैंने 4 mobile app बना दिया, I'm digital. I mean, the world has moved way beyond mobile apps. Nothing wrong with the mobile app, don't get me wrong. But digital transformation is saying that, look, are my processes digital? Do my people think digital? Some of the points that Prime Minister Modi was making in terms of what does digital really mean. Is the culture of the company digital? And more important, can we really look at digital transformation? I'll give you just one example from Zensar, which I was running till 2 months back. I remember we, like everybody else, were kind of struggling a little bit with digital, and we said cloud, we said security, we said mobility, social, etc., etc. Then one fine day, we found that, look, if we took digital commerce, okay, which is the actual transaction of digital commerce, and not leave it to the Flipkarts of the world. So we went out to all the top retailers in America and said, look, can we now go build a complete end-to-end digital platform for you? And that means everything, including security, almost like a digital Pune or a digital India in a smaller context. And we found that suddenly there were these $12 million, $18 million deals. So there were big deals happening. So the point I'm making, Hemant, is we need to take digital very seriously. It is the way people will live and breathe. The minute people live and breathe like that, companies will have to come to the party, cities will have to come to the party, and governments will have to come to the party. I think that is probably the best way I can describe that this is no longer a fad. It is the way life is today, and we need to understand that and also be secure about it. Now, don't ask me any more questions.
No, one follow-on question. I can't. So as a CEO, I just want to ask, as running a company, is it a binary thing? I mean, do you have a choice to be digital or not? That just answer that.
I don't. I mean, of course you have a choice. Do you have a choice to be dead or alive? You have a choice.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would like to add something what he said, and then this is from my personal experience. For some time, Aadhaar organization, that is UIDAI, I was working with that UIDAI, from being a telecom, IT head in Vodafone, because UIDAI wanted to have some POCs done in the field, right? So they always wanted some good partners who can actually cooperate with them and then get the POC get going. So one of the POC I did was in Shatabdi Express. You have to do biometric authentication on a moving train at 100 kilometers per hour. Right, so the POC was done in 3 trains, basically chosen by UIDAI, and it was Delhi to Dehradun, and Delhi to Ajmer, and Delhi to one more train. So 3 trains, 3 days, and continuously 6 hours the train will be running, and the network has to hold on, and biometric authentication has to happen. Every 5 minutes one authentication has to happen, because this is basically for a traveling ticket examiner for a future, right? So we need to have a tablet PC which is having an embedded biometric chip in that. And the way Aadhaar works is that Aadhaar is an online authentication platform. You can't have anything offline. So you have to have a connectivity to the UIDAI server in Delhi. So it's a tremendous challenge, right? And in that experience, what we found is that as he was telling that developing an app is not the only thing. It's just one of the aspects of that. There is an hardware involved. There is an online authentication involved by our security guys, right? There is an information technology and information security are always of the same coin, 2 sides of the same coin. So this aspect came into picture. Plus, as Dr. Sanjay was telling about the human aspect of that. How a traveling ticket examiner will behave with a tablet PC, how long that battery will hold the current, right? And how fast that train is moving, how the signal will come into the train. Cellular signal has to come into the same train. How the signal will get handed over from one tower to the other tower without dropping the call, right? So many aspects of that was put into test at that point of time. So that was a sample. I'm saying every application in digital India will have to be like that. I mean, will be like that.
Yeah. So let me continue this theme about discussion on the business and the opportunities and what is possible. I mean, generally when we say the art of possible, it's, there is a negative connotation. It's some sort of a compromise. But I think the art of possible is doing something which is perhaps what we think is not possible, but to do it, to make it happen on a different paradigm. And I would request Siddesh to share his perspective, on this, as a digital, the art of possible, what is possible, not necessarily from current paradigm, but if you change the paradigm, what happens and how it's going to create wealth.
Sure. So we heard the PM specifically talk about governance, digital and governance, and I wanted to give one example which I think a lot of people here will relate to. In a state like UP, so I'm not talking about Bangalore or smart Pune, which is all IT enabled, but in a place like UP, we are right now doing a project where we are taking about 25 years worth of documents, not Word documents, but printed material, which are basically the proceedings of the Vidhan Sabha for the last 25, 30 years. And these are, you can imagine all those files that are stacked in government offices, dusty files. 25 years worth of those things, 25 years worth of audio recordings of the Vidhan Sabha, some video recordings in, Doordarshan formats, and actually digitizing them to a point. And when I say digitizing, we are not just taking pictures and making them available for scanning. We are actually reading those documents, indexing them, and making them available on the internet. So what you can actually do is you can, for example, go and say, what did the finance ministers talk about, or what was the scheme of, say, and you can ask it in Hindi, कि महिलाओं के लिए भुगतान कितना किया गया, right? So you can get words like that and pull out documents from maybe a discussion that happened in 1982. That's 25 years, right? Yeah. Whatever. And you can pick out, what people have been saying. You can pick out, you can actually see video clips and make that available on
times.
25, 30 years back, right? And you can actually see those papers now, but you don't have to really go through them, but you can index them and get directly into the paragraph that you're looking for. And you're doing it in a state like UP, and we are really looking about government departments, right? So you can just imagine what it means for an act like RTI, for example, where, like Modi said, you don't have to wait for 24 hours. In fact, he said 24 minutes, which for an IT guy is an era, right? Because we expect things in 24 seconds, which I think is possible. And we saw the demo last time when you were in Persistent. So I think there is amazing scope happening, but I should caution, and all the people here are talking about security. It also opens a huge can of worms in terms of security, which I think we are barely aware of. We are aware of the so-called Nigerian fraud, and we still fall for it. So you can imagine what is lying behind in the shadows. I think we need to be very careful about what it can do.
Excellent. And just a follow-on question on that. Where do you see the interface of, or the connect of Digital India, the social media? Prime Minister referred Twitter, he referred Facebook, he referred Instagram, all these technologies. I mean, do you think they are going to become big technologies, or just, today it's fun and, younger crowd or whatever?
So I don't think you can envision anything digital without social media anymore. Ganesh sir gave this very nice example of Kunal, the way Kunal interacts. the way PMC Pune is starting to interact with people. Yes, we have a long way to go, and there is a lot of pessimism among people. Every time, like he said, every time you say something positive, you have a flood of people complaining about dead dogs in their neighborhood and all kinds of rubbish. But I think as a way to interact with citizens, we have 1.3 billion people. I think today each one of us feels no matter who we are, we think we can get the PM to hear our ideas, right? Which is just unimaginable if you even take a couple of years back. Because when I was a kid and Rajiv Gandhi was the PM, Rajiv Gandhi was this face who would come on Doordarshan News. That's all I could ever aspire to in terms of knowing Rajiv Gandhi. And today I feel that if I tweet something to @Narendra Modi, if he likes it, he'll respond. So you have bridged the gap between celebrities and politicians and thought leaders and the average 1.3 billionth citizen to a level of 1. And I think that's fascinating. And again, people need to know how to start using that positively and then be able to, make sure you don't get troubled by it from the negative point of view.
Yeah, that's great, and I'll come back to develop this thought further. But let me get the security dimension, Maria. And you head the CISO function for a large technology company, which has, I think I've forgotten now how many countries your footprint is in. I think 160 or whatever. Yeah. And, I mean, how do you look at this whole security issue, the paradigm, digital India? What have you been sort of thinking and facing, and how are you trying to deal with this?
Digital India is not only a prestigious project, this is also a prodigious one. And if you look at the kind of security challenges, most of the time, the security is an afterthought. When there is a problem, people talk about security. They think about security only when they are in trouble. So that mindset has to go. For example, today we are talking about clean energy. We are talking about pollution. We are talking about global warming to make sure that the future generation is safe.